Very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Broom with the CBC Evening News. In our top story tonight, in just over a month, the Caribbean is expected to take a huge step in responding to security threats, including terrorism and other sudden impact hazards. That's because the governments of Barbados and Trinidad and Tobago will be hosting the 33rd annual exercise Tradewind. It will see hundreds of security personnel given practical training to keep up with ever-changing threats to the security of the region.
Over 800 soldiers, sailors, police and disaster management practitioners from 21 different countries will arrive on the shores of Barbados and of Trinidad and Tobago between June 6th and 17th with the common goal of making the region safer. Included will be member states of the regional security system and CARICOM, as well as Canada, France, the Netherlands and the United Kingdom, who are expected to arrive with aircrafts, maritime vessels and other resources not used on the island for more than 15 years. The training is expected to be conducted in local communities using real-life scenarios based on real threats and is expected to enhance local responses to threats facing the region. Co-director of Barbados for Exercise Tradewinds, Major Carlos Lovell, says the ultimate goal of this year's exercise is to assemble a CARICOM task force to fight the most imminent threats. He also identified a number of challenges which, if not properly addressed, will seriously threaten the peace, security and stability of this hemisphere.
The scourge of illegal drugs, illegal arms and human trafficking are some of the familiar issues for which Tradewind 2017 will seek to enhance our capabilities to counter. It will also seek to develop new techniques and procedures to combat unfamiliar threats to Barbados, such as the use of improvised explosive devices, threats to key government infrastructure, and kidnapping, just to name a few.
Director of Training at the Regional Security Service, Brian Roberts, stressed that the region continues to suffer from rising murder rates as well as political, social and economic instability. But he thinks the region could be affected by issues such as religious and ethnic conflicts or even terrorism. In fact, Lieutenant Colonel Jorge Jaramillo of the United States Air Force says addressing the threat of terrorism will be high on the agenda.
We need to defeat the threat before it shows up. And that's what the point of this exercise is. It's a show of force. Let's not make any mistakes about this. This is an opportunity for the forces to practice, but it's also an opportunity to show anybody that's out there that is not well intended that the United States, with all its partners, are willing to protect our citizens.
The Department of Emergency Management will also play a significant role in exercise Tradewinds, and officials continue to stress the need for a more holistic approach to security. There's also a role for the general population, who will be needed as role players in the various scenarios. To learn more about the exercise or to volunteer, Barbadians are invited to log on to exercisetradewinds2017.barbados.gov.bb. Kareem Smith, CBC News.
Thanks, Kareem. The Ministry of Education is hoping for better working relations with the local teachers' unions over the coming year. That's the pledge from Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry, Senator Harcourt Husbands. He believes the frequent standoffs between government and teachers' unions are overshadowing the good work being done in schools.
We need, I think, to promote with vigor the tremendous work that is being done in our schools by teachers and by students. And if we continue the back and forth between the ministry and the unions and the parents and so on, I think we lose a unique opportunity to highlight the work, the tremendous work for good that is being done in the schools in Barbados.
Senator Husbands was addressing the 43rd Annual General Conference of the Barbados Union of Teachers under the theme Valuing Teachers, Improving Their Status. In his address, BUT President Pedro Shepherd took issue with the appointment of some people who sit on school boards.
We have found that some of those members have not a clue what their role is on these boards. Furthermore, I do not see the need for individual schools to have individual boards either. Take a leaf from the private sector and appoint 4 boards to oversee the 22 schools across Barbados.
If teachers are marking school-based assessments, then they should be compensated. That's the opinion of President of the Barbados Union of Teachers, Pedro Shepherd, echoing similar calls from the Barbados Secondary Teachers Union. However, it is yet to be seen if that position will change, as the BUT plans to survey its members to get a true picture of their thoughts on the matter.
Until that is done, the BUT will stick to the position that it supports in principle what the Barbados Secondary Teachers Union is proposing, and that is that there is need for discussion and there is need for compensation. The BUT agrees that there should be some form of compensation, even if not monetary.
However, the BUT president also believes that payment is only one issue to be dealt with where the SBAs are concerned.
My personal view, and that of the majority of my executive, is that the matter is bigger than compensation, and it cannot be solved by any number of marches, mobile meetings, or letters to the Ministry of Education. The issue has to be seen in the context of its overall burden on the students, parents, teachers, and to a limited extent on the ministries of education and governments across the many territories in which the SBAs are done.
Finance Minister Chris Sinclair is defending the timing of some of the decisions government has made in dealing with the economic problems facing the island. He says contrary to what some believe tough decisions were taken, noting that government has done everything it can to shield those who need it most from the harshest effects of those measures.
If you ask anybody in Barbados to tell why Chris Sinclair got life so hard in Barbados, but tough decisions were made. It's just that they may not have been enough. And we might have shielded people a lot more from the fallout of the economic crisis. Yes, maybe that is it, but we made a value judgment. You make value judgments. You think things will improve more or better. You think you'll get in more revenue, and then maybe you don't. So you have to revisit it. It's like a patient. You go to the doctor, you're then diagnosed with a particular illness. Sometimes the diagnosis is wrong. Sometimes it is correct. You get prescribed medication, but the medication doesn't work. You have to change it. This is all part of the process.
Well, Mr. Sinclair says there were some improvements in its economic fortunes, but then other factors impacted that growth.
Canadians started to change their legislation. You then had Brexit. You had the situations with sargassum, with chikungunya, then Zika, affecting the tourism sector. Tourism has only now begun to settle down and grow. And that is our major industry. International business has not recovered from the fallout of that crisis yet. And all of the other things. So it's not as though one set of things happened, everything went back to normal, and we are still not improving. These things have continued to affect us.
Barbadians are being cautioned about higher than normal sea swells. In fact, the Met Office has issued a high surf advisory and a small craft warning for the island from 6 p.m. today until 6 p.m. on Wednesday. Now, according to Met officials, a low-pressure system in the north-central Atlantic has been generating large northerly swells. As a result, northerly swells of up to 4 meters or 13 feet are expected to affect coastal waters around Barbados, particularly on the west, north and eastern side of the island from tonight. This activity should persist for at least another 24 hours and, according to the forecasters, may become even more adverse at times of high tide. The Met Office cautions that large waves and dangerous rip currents can be expected mainly along the west, north and east coasts of Barbados. They say this will create unsafe conditions for small craft operators, and sea bathers and others using the sea are also being advised to stay out of the water. The curtain has closed on another Oyster Festival, but vendors are already calling on organizers to implement changes to next year's event. Sharika Griffith has more.
With many commenting on the sparse crowd and sales compared to previous years, vendors believe that the Oyster Festival needs to be revamped. Many of them veterans of the festival, they are appealing to organizers for greater advertising and new ideas to breathe new life into it.
Since we've been here, at one stage yesterday we can count on the streets the amount of people who were passing, and it doesn't make any sense. We're paying out a lot of money to come to sell here, but no advertising. I drive in my car for my living, and I have not heard anything at all about Oyster Festival.
Find something new to add to it. More floats. If you got one set of children one day, bring another set each day. You can still got the fish morning and certain events that you know you got that belongs to Oyster that really make it the fish festival. You won't get away from those things, but like add more things to it. Get a float every day.
Patrons also offered constructive criticism, with some calling for greater variety in the products on sale.
Tell you the truth, I ain't seen it different. All I hear is look of money making something, but I ain't seen it different, and all is the same thing.
So they don't have a lot of local arts and crafts, but a lot of toys for kids that are coming from somewhere else probably, right? So maybe some more things that are locally made, that would make things more interesting.
But there were some positives coming out of the festival. One such was 18-year-old Akim Durant, who beat out more experienced competitors and claimed a $1,000 prize by winning a boat race. Tyrone Shorey also continued his reign as dolphin skinning king by securing his 14th win at the festival. Fabian Doughty and Damian Warner placed second and third in that competition. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
Unemployment levels in Barbados are low, and Labour Minister Senator Dr. Esther Bayasuku says her ministry wants to keep them that way. Speaking at a recent Democratic Labour Party FACT meeting, she says unemployment levels are at 9%, and despite the economic challenges facing the country, preserving jobs remains a priority.
If you look across the region, employment levels went up to 20, 25, 30, 35%, just with some of our neighbors in the OECS. We in Barbados, the unemployment levels, we in Barbados have been able to hold unemployment. It never got further than 12%. And that in itself was a challenge. It was difficult. It took every ministry and even our partners in the private sector and in the unions to work together to ensure that we kept unemployment levels down.
The Labour Minister highlighted the party's commitment to putting legislation in place that's favourable to workers. She believes it's particularly important to regulate the treatment of workers by international businesses who set up shop in Barbados.
We are glad for foreign investment. We are glad for foreign companies coming and setting up here, and we want them to come. And when they come, we want them to obey the rules. But what we have learned is that they're not coming here with the same career attitude that we have adopted over the last 50 years. They're not coming to say, well, that's how we usually treat workers, so you're supposed to let them do this and that. The first thing they will tell you is, show me where it is written. And that is why we rushed to do this Employment Rights Act and to set up the tribunal, so that nobody has an excuse for mistreating workers in this country.
All major development projects should include social impact and other assessments as a matter of course. That's the view of Steve Devenish, chairman of the Barbados World Heritage Committee. He was addressing a workshop organized by the Barbados Town Planning Society under the theme Getting It Right, Development Within the UNESCO World Heritage Site. Among the attendees were architects, real estate developers, engineers, and other interested parties.
There are a couple of other things that have come up since then. Heritage impact assessment and visual impact assessment. In terms of all these things, and this is my view as Steve Devenish, an architect, I've been saying recently, maybe we should call it impact assessments and stop attaching environmental, heritage, and culture and all that, because if you say assessment and you do a true assessment of a site, you should look at social context, urban context, and all these things, and therefore they'll be captured. But in terms of assessments, these are things that any competent designer with a massive development in a city or a cityscape should be doing as a matter of course.
Well, also addressing the workshop was Chairman of the National Heritage Task Force, Jeffrey Ramsey. He believes there should be more activities and events within historic Bridgetown and its garrison to enhance the area's international appeal as a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
I happened, coincidentally, to be driving past yesterday, and it was the tail end of the kite flying. And the garrison was alive with people and activity. And I think that really, whether we talk about World Heritage or not, we need to be able, in terms of tourism, heritage tourism, to sell what we have, and we do have a lot. But we need bed and breakfasts, we need restaurants. Perhaps for the time being we have enough hotels, but certainly the smaller operations, restaurants, taxis, tour guides, events, changing of the guard. I'm not sure if that has been abandoned temporarily, but this area could be a magnet.
We'll take a short break here and come back with more news.
Tough steel roofing,
Permaclad,
in vibrant colors,
Color Clash,
standing seam,
Permaseam,
locking seams,
Permalock,
hurricane shutters,
Permashield,
seamless gutters,
Permaflow,
reinforcement,
Rebar,
custom made,
cut and bent,
foundations,
welded wire,
stronger block walls,
bricks force,
stronger roofs,
hurricane straps,
fencing too.
galvanized mesh.
With BRC you'll soon discover, top to bottom we've got you covered, tougher, stronger, lasting longer. BRC.
Your insurance payment doesn't have to be a burden. At Beacon, we're happy to help finance your premium and spread your payments over 9 months so that it's easier to manage. Call 436-6200 or log on to beacon.co.tt.
Police are probing a shooting incident at 4th Avenue, Durance Village, St. James, which resulted in minor damage to a small shop. Lawmen say around 1:45 today, 2 armed men approached the shop's Pierre's Variety and opened fire before fleeing the scene. Police say the shop is also attached to a house occupied by 29-year-old Pierre Sandiford, that is. CBC News understands that the shop assistant and some of the occupants of the house were there. However, no one was reportedly injured in that incident. Lawmen are asking anyone who can provide information to assist with this investigation to contact the nearest police station. A non-profit organization is helping to develop female entrepreneurs. 10 Habitat is doing so through the hosting of a female founders boot camp. Executive Director Selwyn Cambridge says the event is slated for May 10th and 11th.
That will also be staged in our soon-to-be launched Innovation Hub and Co-working Space. So the 10 Habitat will be launching a co-working space and an innovation hub in the center of Bridgetown. So you'll hear more about that as well. And that's all part of our initiative to really develop and build community around entrepreneurship.
The preliminaries of the Junior Monarch contest will get underway in just a month's time, and all efforts are being made to ensure the young Calypsonians are prepared to hit the big stage. Now, the NCF has been hosting a series of workshops to help them. Our Rianne Phillips tells us more.
The competition in this year's Junior Monarch is predicted to be even stiffer than last year. Producer Karen Pastina says for the first time, 7-year-olds will be among those facing the judges.
It's always been 8. But what I found in the past 2-3 years is a lot of 7-year-olds come and take the workshop. And these are some confident young people. So I said, you know, the committee met and we decided to lower it to 7 years for this year.
During the final workshop, contestants were exposed to technical aspects of the competition, such as stage use and lighting.
They may say during the rehearsal, okay, I'm going to end center stage, and then they end slightly off of center. And lighting designer might have set up the end to be lighting just the center, and then they end up out of the light. Things like that. That's probably about one of the biggest ones, because they're not aware of what goes into trying to make their presentation what they say that they want it to be.
The young Calypsonians told us what stuck with them from the sessions.
I know that you have to move around instead of stay in one place.
I learned that you're supposed to wear appropriate clothes and we're supposed to sing out so that the entire audience can hear you.
Today I learned that there is more into singing than just the performance. There's lighting, there's all kinds of different aspects. Today I learned a lot that I could actually improvise and use them in my performance.
Every year I go to workshops. To me, although I'm hearing the same thing sometimes, you know, there's always something added to what you hear the year in front.
And their parents also showered praises on the NCF for organizing the workshop.
I see it as something good that the NCF is doing in terms of development of the children, not only for the competition now, but for future reference, future entertainers, etc.
Oh, the workshops are amazing. I think what they do is they encourage the children to be confident. And it's not just a workshop for junior monarch, it's something for life.
I think the workshop is great for the kids. The one thing that I've noticed for the last 2 years of coming here is that it helps them to develop.
The finals of the Junior Monarch contest are slated for July 22nd. Brianne Phillips, CBC News.
The Data Processing Department is building out a more robust cloud infrastructure for government. As it moves to advance this goal, Barbados is gaining insight into cloud computing as the 13th meeting of the Caribbean Network Operators Group, or CARIBNOG, got underway here this morning. Director of the Data Processing Department, Rodney Taylor, says CARIBNOG forms part of its strategy for building capacity.
We're getting increasing demands from our ministries that we support to host infrastructure, which we already do to some extent, but we want to do it in a more robust environment and to have some policies around the provisioning of that infrastructure. So those things are very relevant. We're also hosts to the Internet Exchange Point, so we're participants and we want to be even more active as a non-ISP.
Well, Mr. Taylor says privacy and data security are essential given the threats posed.
Of course, being a government entity, dealing with health information, law enforcement records, that kind of thing, it is important for us to place that high on the agenda. So from a technical perspective, to ensure that we have systems in place, we have the right policies, and tomorrow in the lightning presentation you will be hearing from one of our officers in the newly established cybersecurity unit. We're looking to build capacity there, and he'll be speaking a bit on some of the threats that we've been experiencing on our networks and some of the initiatives we're taking to address those challenges.
After the break, we'll take a look at stories making headlines across our region.